Hi JDSP TV. I'm Jessica Dall, author of the novel Gray Areas, and I'm just going to take a couple minutes and answer a few questions you guys have. Gray Areas is an urban fantasy novel which follows a group of 6 friends who've always been rather close, but there never seemed to be anything especially strange about that. And then one day, the newest member of their group, James, starts talking about how he thinks all of them are daemons. Of course, they've only been familiar with the concept of demons, where they're servants of the devil, evil people. And he has to explain that in the ancient Greek version of daemons, they were seen as supernatural beings that could be either good or bad. It's just that it was their duty to draw people along one way or another. Like Socrates used to say he had a daemon who was his guardian angel. And though they aren't especially inclined to believe him, some certain events happen and they sort of have to accept that they are daemons, and there are people out there who are the bad versions of daemons too, who call themselves demons. And they find themselves locked in this strange battle where none of them seem to be completely good, none of them seem to be completely bad, and they need to completely uproot their lives and try to make it through something none of them ever thought they would have to. Honestly, I think I was drawn more to the storyline than to the genre. There are some people who only write one sort of novel, like you're a romance novelist, you're a sci-fi novelist, anything like that. But I don't consider myself a fantasy novelist. It's just you can't really have demons running around the streets in modern day if you aren't writing a fantasy novel. And you can't tell the story without having them being daemons and demons. And so for the most part, I was trying to tell a story where there aren't just good guys running around trying to defeat generic villain number one. And this was the best way that I could do that. Right now I'm working on a series that is historical fiction. I've done literary fiction. Basically, if it allows me to tell a story I find interesting, that's all I'm really looking for in a genre. 5 things I would tell aspiring novelists are: 1, your first novel is never as good as you think it is. At least I know mine wasn't. Like anything else, writing is a skill, and the more you do it, the better you get. So when you are eventually publishing that first novel down the line, you'll be really glad that that novel you have now hidden away from the world wasn't the first thing you had tied to your name, just because you've gotten so much better in the years you've been writing. 2, there is no right way to write. Just because you have a friend with a PhD who does their writing one way, or you have a creative writing professor who tells you that you won't have a good book unless you do X, Y, and Z. As long as that final product is good, it doesn't matter how you got there. Yes, you should listen to people who are telling you how to make your writing better, but it's really all about the end game for writing. 3, friends and family are good cheerleaders, but generally not as good as editors. That can change, of course, if you have a professional editor in the family or your best friend Stephen King. But for the most part, casual readers don't pick out the things that professional writers, editors, and publishers do. So have a writing group, have an editor, have someone that can look over your stuff before sending it out into the world that aren't just the people who like you. 4, the internet is forever. That goes for most things these days, but especially if you're a writer. You don't want to have something that's awful tied to your name on a Google search when you're trying to present yourself as someone who writes well. Also, a lot of publishers only contract first publication rights, and they consider anything that gives a certain percentage of your novel to the public publication. So if you have your novel on your blog, they can consider that a first publication, and suddenly you can only send it to people who accept reprints. And that can seriously damage you if you want to go the traditional publication route. And finally, trust people. There is a big worry among people who are new to writing that they're going to send off their novel somewhere all bright, new, and shiny, and it's going to be stolen, or their idea is going to be taken, and all of a sudden they'll be out with nothing. You don't need to do a poor man's copyright, which is sending a couple chapters to yourself in the mail for the post date. You don't even really need to go through the copyright office, because in the US at least, if you have written the words, you have a copyright on them. It's as soon as you've typed them into your computer. Also, it's just not worth the time for people to steal your work. There are thousands and thousands of novels out there. If you can't find one that has an idea like yours, I think you aren't looking hard enough. And publishers have a wide range of books to choose from, and they're going to spend hours and hours editing it before publishing it. So it's worth working with the original writer rather than stealing it and trying to fend off a lawsuit that this isn't their work.